You probably can't wait to hear about this. Let me hear your reaction. Ready? Self-control. Because it's not like we go out to the theme park and you go, oh, I can't wait today. We're going to have so much self-control. And you don't have a party and say, hey, we're going to have heaping platters at this party filled with self-control, right? What are some, any discipline or shame messages that you kind of get, punishment ideas with self-control? Did you ever hear as a kid, young lady, you need to exercise some more self-control? Nobody else heard that? Wow, must have been just me. See, when I was growing up, we had this great punishment, discipline kind of thing that my dad did. He was always really excited and happy with himself when he was able to create something. And he was particularly tickled with himself when he was able to exercise his wonderful sense of humor. So he did something that he was able to do both of those things in together. He took a board and sanded it down and rounded the edges and made a handle at the end and padded it with duct tape for comfort. And then he wrote this pithy little title on it that was called The Board of Education. So when we got in trouble, he loved to be able to say, well, do I need to consult with the Board of Education? We did not think it was quite so funny. In fact, the Board of Education went missing. But my dad, being the resourceful man that he was, really enjoyed making a new one. He sanded it down and rounded the edge and put padding on the end for the handle, and then he made a new saying that he even liked better. He called it the memory helper. Because our favorite excuse when we got in trouble was, oh, I forgot, oh, I forgot about that rule, please, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. And Dad would say, well, let me get the memory helper, and you will not forget again, right? And we didn't think that was very funny either. Because really, at the time, it wasn't that we forgot. It was that we failed to exercise self-control. They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best. But God disciplines us for our good in order that we may share in His holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. You see, we get these punitive, shame-based messages about discipline and self-discipline, partly because we have a misconception about God our Father and our relationship with Him. And that's why we don't understand God's design for self-control. In fact, Christian self-control is kind of a misnomer, isn't it? It should be spirit-directed rather than self-controlled. In order to illustrate this better, I'm going to do one of my favorite things. I'm going to tell a story. And I have a beautiful volunteer. This story. She is a princess. Everyone welcome Princess Carmelita. I had to wear a tiara too because they're just too much fun. Once upon a time, there was a princess, beloved and adored by her father, the king. He made her special garments to wear that just graced her body perfectly. He made her lovely princess shoes to protect her tender feet. He even built her and spared no expense, a beautiful palace in the middle of the wasteland. Wondrous shade trees swayed in the breeze, lush grasses carpeted the grounds. And he only placed a low bench wall around the perimeter to mark the territory of the castle. It was not a high wall, such as to captivate a prisoner, but a low wall to set the boundary. However, as adored and lovely as this princess was, she had a bit of a rebellious nature. There was an enemy prince in the lands just outside the realm of the king's blessings. And he knew all too well about the princess's rebellious nature. So the prince sent whispers tempting at the princess's rebellious heart. Come, he said, come taste, come experience things beyond your wildest dreams, things you could not have imagined. And so one day she couldn't stand it anymore. She saw in the distance a glimmer of green, beautiful palms waving in the breeze, just at the edge of her sight line. So she hopped over the wall and began to run into the desert. Although she couldn't run very well with her princess shoes on, so she had to take those off. And she also found that her dress was rather constricting, so she ripped the bottom of the dress off and made it into a miniskirt. And she ripped the sleeves off and the collar off and made it into a low-scoop tank top. Much more comfortable for running in the desert. But she didn't care. She couldn't wait to taste those fruits. She'd never had fruit like that before. Oh, the texture was just divine. It was unlike anything she'd ever tasted. And the well water was new and different, a flavor that had not existed in the Father's spring water. She drank and became dizzy and intoxicated with all the new sensual experiences around her. After a while, she noticed her stomach was beginning to bother her. And she didn't understand why. It caused her to take a closer look at her fruit. And then she noticed it was writhing with parasites. Then she started to drink more water. And then as she was drinking more and more water, she noticed the smell was a familiar smell. Oh, was that salt? She eventually made it to the edge of the palace garden. Her father, the king, paid no mind to his royal robes slipping off his shoulders as he ran to greet her. He embraced her bruised, stinking, bleeding body and carried her inside, taking all of the stench and woundedness onto himself. He brought her in and bandaged her wounds and made her new dresses, new shoes to adorn her tender feet. This is all about a four-letter word after all, isn't it? And it's not the four-letter word you might think of when you're thinking of self-control. It's not about captivity. It's not about curses. And it's not about F-E-A-R. It's about another four-letter word. L-O-V-E. You see, power, love, and self-control are all interconnected. Love gives us the power to have self-control. We struggle to see the connection between self-control and love because we're so focused on that toxic, negative mindset that comes so naturally to our human nature. We tend to fear the cost and doubt the results. But the cost is not nearly as big as the benefit. If you think about our benefits that we get from exercising a spirit-directed life, it's exponentially more than any cost that we have to pay. Isn't it amazing that we can crawl up into Papa God's lap, rest our head on his shoulder, and have conversations with him every day, the maker of the universe. And we get a harvest of righteousness and peace. How many people would like more peace? Peace is an awesome thing. And this is a battleground of the mind, but don't hear this is all in your head and dismiss this as something insignificant. Every battle of any significance is always won first in the mind. Think about what your commitment to self-discipline means. What is that going to do to change your life, your lifestyle, your relationships, and your own personal habits to focus on God's love? And I want you to talk with somebody this week, an accountability partner, your table, and make a commitment to discuss it in a month with that person. Write it on your calendar because we all know what doesn't go on the calendar doesn't happen. But make a date to call them and catch up with them and tell them what an impact it has made. As daughters, treasured and beloved by the magnificent King, let's endeavor to take his arm every day and walk with him everywhere we go. Have a blessed and wonderful